Good morning, everyone. And of course, good afternoon to friends and listeners and viewers of my guest, Dr. Jonathan Royle. My name is Janice Malillo, the host of Stories That Inspire Us / the author series. And today, I just want to be totally upfront. We are talking about SHITNOSIS, okay? So there's going to be some swearing involved. So if you have little kids around, obviously, of course. Dr. Royle, Jonathan.
Hi.
As I was first of all, welcome to the Stories podcast. I'm so excited.
Thank you for inviting me on, Janice. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. And obviously, I absolutely love the t-shirt that you're wearing. It says, I am an adult, technically. And I think we can... that's so perfect for what we are going to be chatting about. I obviously, when we had our pre-podcast chat, I was really taken by your story, and we're going to get into your book in just a moment. But you are so multi-talented, facet all over, and I'm wondering if you could just give us a little background about your story before we start chatting about your book.
Yeah, of course. I'll just preface this by saying to viewers and listeners that some of this will sound so batshit crazy. And it's only in recent years that I've realised, looking back on it, that it does sound batshit crazy to other people. To me, it was happening, so it was my world. It was normal to me. It's only in the past few years I've started to realise why other people in many situations probably thought I was talking complete and utter bollocks. But if you are of that mind, I can understand why, because some of this sounds completely out there. But to make life easy for you, it's not got anything for sale there. It's just an informational page, magicalguru.co.uk, which is magicalguru.co.uk. There's links on there to other third-party sites, photographs, videos, and things that basically prove that the batshit crazy things I'm about to mention, yes, they're batshit crazy, but they also happen to be true and reality. And in some cases, fortunately, I was incredibly lucky to experience them. In others, highly unfortunate too. So, yeah, I was born on the 13th of August, 1975, into a show business family, whilst my parents were travelling with Gandhi's Circus here in England. So my dad at the time was circus clown, Tizzy the Clown, and also did a fire-eating, bed of nails, going up a ladder of daggers, what they call a yogi fakir. I didn't swear, I said fakir. It's a type of guru, F-A-K-I-R, act. And my mum was doing a sharpshooting, whip cracking, rope spinning, wild western type act. So that's the background I was born into. And as is the thing on the circus, people teach each other their skills so that if somebody's injured, for example, somebody else can fill in and the show must go on, as Phineas T. Barnum once said. Well, also, the kids are encouraged to get involved in the show as early as possible. It's very much a way of life rather than a career or anything. So at the age of 3 and a bit, in around November 1978, to be precise, I made my performance debut as Flap the Clown, F-L-A-P. And the reason for that being, my dad was Tizzy the Clown, and there's that old saying, sometimes people get in a tizzy. And there's also another saying, certainly in England anyway, that sometimes people get in a flap, both meaning a bit like, what the heck's going on? So he was already called Tizzy the Clown. I was named Flap the Clown, so it was Tizzy and Flap. That website address, I said, you can go and see the embarrassing photographs of me in the grey wig, red nose, glasses, and clown's makeup and all that. So yeah, I started doing that. I'm just 3 and a bit. And so from a very early age, I was performing. And consequently, positively or negatively, that's a matter of personal opinion, I got hooked, addicted, you may say, to an audience clapping, showing their appreciation and love, to laughing at the right times. And that's why you hear rock stars, pop stars, actors saying that the time they feel most alive is on a stage. And that's why a lot of them end up becoming addicted to various things as an escape from everyday life when they're not performing, because normal life just doesn't have that same shine or feeling or connection anchored to it for them. And unfortunately, that was going to become a negative part of my life a little bit further down. But my mum, who didn't come from a show business background, but had met my dad when he'd briefly been working on a holiday camp as the entertainment director, and then got married into the business, as it were, wanted me to have a normal. What the heck's normal? And for the listeners, I'm doing that speech marks in the air thing, because normal is just a perceptional thing. There's no such thing as normal. It's just what people perceive. But what my mum perceived to be normal would be me going to one school in one town or village, rather than travelling from town to town and going to different schools. And so by the time I was 6 and a bit, rather than doing 2 shows a day, 6 days a week, it was changed to us getting a house, settling down. My dad still travelled with the circus, but in the evenings, weekends, school holidays, when the show was near enough, I'd go and perform. But during the day, rather than going town to town, I was at one school, because that would be normal. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, because, for example, at the age of 6, I'd already appeared in national media, but at the age of 6, when I started at that school, the Daily Mirror, a British national newspaper, came along and took photographs of me dressed up as a clown in the school, and then ran an article, Alex, because that's my birth name, Alex, my stage name's Jonathan Royle, Alex the Circus 6-It. That article's on the website I mentioned earlier. And when this appeared, I can only guess, looking back on it, the reasoning that the teachers started to persecute and bully me, and I did say the teachers, is, I think, because they realised that on a pro rata basis, I was earning more per hour than them. But the key phrase there is pro rata, if you worked it out as an hourly rate. I wasn't working anywhere near as many hours as them. I don't know, but for some, or maybe it was just that I was getting the attention, who knows? But they made my life a living hell. It didn't help I had ginger hair as well. I keep it quite close, but you can see pictures at that website. It was the proper ginger nuts, carrot top, hair colour that I have when it's long, that in itself caused me to be bullied. But ironically, at this school, not by the other pupils, but by the teachers.
Wow.
And that nightmare continued for close to 2 years. Along the way, I regularly was practically begging to go to a different school, but there was no other school in that village, and any others were too far away at the time. But by the time I was 8, we had moved to another town, and I was sent to a different school. And I'm delighted to say at St Luke's C of E School in Haywood in England that never got bullied once or victimised or persecuted from any of the teachers. In fact, quite the opposite. The teachers were highly supportive, encouraging, especially the must get a new set of teeth and a new brain, headmaster even, the principal, as I think they refer to them in the States. He was particularly encouraging, and when he'd go on holiday, because he knew that my hobby at the time was conjuring and magic tricks. I performed professionally as a clown, but my hobby at an early age was conjuring magic tricks. He'd come back and he bought magic tricks for me, and he said, "I've got these for you. You can have them on condition that you perform them in the school assembly." Which I was more than happy to do. Anyway, the persecution ended from the teachers. Unfortunately, when I started appearing in the media again, and also on television, and there's a video clip of me at the age of 8 as Flap the Clown on my website, magicalguru.com, under TV clips, I did start getting bullied, but this time it was from, not all, but some of the pupils. But this happened on a basically daily basis. Not necessarily physical violence every day, but multiple times a week. But definitely verbal abuse and psychological torture. And anyone who said sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me, was talking complete and utter bullshit, excuse the language, because words are like weapons sometimes, and it's like death by a million paper cuts. And to cut a long story short, it had a really negative impact on my mental health, damaged my self-esteem, self-confidence, and all the other key things that keep you sane. And well, I'll come to that more in a minute, what I call the psychological underlying principles, because it's relevant to what my book's all about. But the point is, these underlying principles had been banged out of shape. They were totally out of sync, out of balance, and that caused, imbalances, and therefore felt shit about myself when I wasn't on stage performing and hearing an audience applaud or laugh at the right times. However, I was also getting conflicted by the fact that doing the circus clowning malarkey and being from a circus background was one of the reasons I was getting bullied. So I wanted to resist, rebel against my dad, who got me into this as I saw it. And so by the time I was about 10, I refused to perform as Flap the Clown, because by then I'd developed my magic and conjuring skills enough that I could do a professional standard magic act. So me figured, get rid of the clown nose, silly wig and all this, stop performing as Flap the Clown, the bullying will stop, but I can still perform as a magician. I became Alex Leroy at the time, and get that applause and laughter and appreciation and love, you may say, from an audience to make me feel better, while I go through whatever process I can find and I was searching for to repair the imbalances and the damage that had been done. Now, as well as the bullying, I'll jump back to being 10 in a minute, but I forgot a couple of major things. There were so many major traumas growing up, but at the age of 4, this is a batshit crazy one for you. At the age of 4, I was playing hide and seek on the circus with the other kids who travelled with the circus. And I went and hid underneath one of the caravans, the trailers, the living quarters, call them what you will. Unbeknownst to me, or I just didn't realise, I didn't care at the time because we were playing, this was the lion tamer's caravan. And underneath it was chained up a puma, a wild puma, that was somewhat shocked to see little 4-year-old me crawling underneath to join it, and started attacking me. And consequently, I've got scars on my head, scars of claw marks down my back. My left ear, I know I'm mirrored on here, but my left ear was ripped off and had to be reattached. That's why it's smaller than the other, and why I normally wear a hearing aid. And I was lucky not to get killed. So that was fairly traumatic. I know it sounds like I'm being flippant the way I'm saying it now, but that's because I've managed to dissipate the emotional intensity surrounding to the memories, which is one of the things that's taught in the book. We'll come to later. Otherwise, I'd be in bits. There was a time in my life I would have been. And at the age of 5, whilst working with Gandhi Circus, one of the acts that was travelling at the time was the Brook Bond PG Tips tea advert chimpanzees. Now, for those who are not in England, who don't remember the adverts where chimpanzees were dressed up as humans and voices dubbed over their mouths to advertise PG Tips from the Brook Bond Tea Company, you can indeed tap in tea advert chimpanzees into YouTube and you'll see some of those adverts and you'll see that it was a real thing. Anyway, these chimps were travelling with the show, and 2 of the main chimps would hold the hands of their chimpanzee trainer, Billy Day, each day to walk to the ring doors or the side of the stage if we were in a theatre, the wings, to get ready for their performance. And afterwards, they'd hold his hands to walk back. And as they were walking back to the dressing room or their caravan, my dad and me would be making our way to the ring doors to get ready for us to go on. And every day, without fail, as the paths cross, Billy would say, "You're all right, Tiz," to my dad, and my dad would turn and go, "You're all right, Billy." And in that very moment, that very second, whichever chimp was nearest to me would whack me around the head. Now, that in itself was slightly traumatic, twice a day, 6 days a week. Now I realized they were basically bullying me, because if they wanted to harm me, I now know as an adult, and having been to Monkey World and this, that, the other, and read that they've got enough strength in their arms to have knocked me unconscious, potentially cause brain damage and or death. So clearly there was no intention of that. It was just it was bullying. I was getting bullied by chimpanzees twice a day.
Oh my goodness.
And then when I moved away from that, the bullying started with the school with the teachers. Then we changed school to another school where I then get bullied by not all, but some of the pupils. Blah, 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 blah. So we're now back to 10 onwards. By the time I was 12, well, before then, but in that transitional bit where just about to leave primary school and go to secondary school, or high school, I think they call it in the States, but it's around the age of about 12, change over here in England anyway. Things were taking such a negative mental toll that I won in winter time, fall, I think they say in the States, the time of the year when it gets darker quicker. Mm-hmm. It crossed my mind to lie down in the middle of Queen's Park Road, the busiest road in Haywood. And I figured if I did, because it was dark and no one would see, and well, it'd all be over and done with pretty damn quick. And well, that'd be an end of the pain. So I did. I lay down in the middle of that road. And I lay there for what seemed like forever. And that's a weird thing. I learned later in life that time's just a construct, and it's a perceptional thing. And you know, you can bump into somebody you've not seen in years and start chatting to them, and you think you've been talking for 5 or 10 minutes, and then you suddenly look at your watch and you've been there hours. And then there can be other times, like if you're having a job appraisal with your boss. You think you've been in there for an hour, but when you get out, you look at your watch and you've only been in a few minutes. So, you know, time's elastic. It seemed to me like I'd been there for ages, but I was probably only there 30 seconds, a minute tops. In any way, it was bizarre because the road was never that quiet. But for some reason, it was this day. So I got fed up and I stood up and I started walking back to the sidewalk, the pavement. And the moment I put one foot onto it, whoosh, I heard the whoosh, and I felt the draft that pushed me forward, and I turned and I saw a big, massive articulated lorry truck whizzing by at high speed, and then traffic after it. And in that moment, I shit myself, which bizarrely is part of the inspiration why this book's called SHITNOSIS. But I also thought to myself, you know, there's got to be a better way than this. And I realised in later years, when I read about online, and people can search themselves, survivors of people trying to commit suicide diving out of multi-storey buildings, that of those rare few that survive, they all consistently said the same thing. That what caused them to jump out of the window of a multi-storey building was that they honestly thought they had way too many issues to deal with in life, or didn't feel equipped to deal with them, or not good enough. And yet the moment they jumped out of the window and they're hurling towards the ground, they realised they only had one problem, one issue. And that was that they just jumped out of the bloody window. And it kind of, boom, puts everything in perspective. There must be another way. And that's when my search started. And that search led to me in the adult library seeing a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And I thought, that's it. That's clearly the answer. If I can learn how to win friends and influence people, I can stop the bullies bullying me. End of the nightmare. Everything will be hunky-dory. Spoiler alert. Didn't work. The contents of the book do work if applied with common sense by an adult in the environment of other adults. Sadly, they don't work used by a 12-year-old on other 12-year-olds. If anything, it actually made things worse. But it did introduce me to an area of the library I wasn't aware of. And I saw another book another time called Day by Day, The Power of Positive Auto-Suggestion by Emile Coué. Anyone who wants to search him out, it's E-M-I-L-E, Emile Coué, C-O-U-E. And in that book, I learned a few things that combined together proved life-changing, positively so. One of those things was the power of positive affirmations, and he's most famous for the phrase, day by day, in every way, I'm feeling and getting better and better. And studies have shown that if you say that to yourself at least a dozen times, first thing in the morning when you just open your eyes, but you're still drowsy and not awake yet, it's what's known as the hypnopompic state. The critical faculty analytical area or executive function of the brain hasn't fully woken up yet. So when you say it to yourself, it goes directly into your personal desktop computer without any resistance. And the same thing at night time, when you lay down to go to sleep and you've started yawning, but you're not quite asleep yet, that's called the hypnagogic state. And again, in that state, the critical faculty analytical area or executive function, call it what you will, it's kind of finished work for the day. And so it can get in positively. And with repetition, morning and night, over a period of days, weeks and months, if you keep doing it, it will make you feel better. There's been studies done it on proving it, and it did help to a degree. Didn't help 100%, but it helped to a degree. It was an improvement. But then I also learned from him a thing called the law of reversed effort. Now, in modern day neurolinguistic programming, it's often referred to as what resists persists, or the idea that you get more of what you focus on in life. And it's also the reason why billions of pounds worth of self-help books, in fact, sell. Millions of copies of The Secret sold on the law of attraction. And yet, if it was so powerful, why do people then keep on buying other self-help books? Surely use the same techniques you've learned. Well, that's because people don't, some of these books don't explain it right, or they hold something back and they want to keep you buying other books and make more money out of people. And also because some people read books and just don't put into action what's in there. I mean, before we even talk about my book, I'll tell you now, if you buy it and read it, miracles aren't going to happen. They could, but only if you actually take action and put into use the things. It doesn't just magically happen. It doesn't work like that. Also, people can misphrase things and misunderstand them. And, you know, people with the law of attraction will sometimes say to themselves, I am no longer poor. I get richer every day. No, 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 no. Say it that way and you're going to remain poor. Because you're saying I'm no longer poor, I'm getting richer every day. But that is actually emphasizing, believe it or not, to your personal laptop computer that you currently are poor. Otherwise, why would you be saying I'm no longer poor? No, you're actually giving yourself suggestions that you're poor. The fact that you then say I'm getting richer every day, the critical faculty, analytical area, executive function, call it what you will hear your conscious mind saying this and go, that's bullshit. So it's not even going to get through to reprogram your personal laptop computer. If anything, it's going to make that focus on the other side of being poorer more and make it more likely that things get worse. Whereas if you were to totally rephrase it and focus on it as though it had already taken place, so make no mention of being poor at all and just say something like day by day, I continue to get richer, happier, healthier and wealthier in every way. Now, that's not claiming anything miraculous. It's based on Emile Coué's focus that every day in every way I'm getting better and better. Well, every day in every way I'm getting richer, happier, healthier and wealthier. Any tiny little win that happens in your daily life, the critical faculty, analytical area, executive function of the brain, call it what you will recognize then any little wins you have and go, that is another success. And the more little successes it sees, the more likely it is to go, you know what, this isn't bullshit, I'll let that through. And then it starts reprogramming the personal laptop computer until it becomes reality and then becomes even easier because there's no suggestion involved in that example of being poor in any manner. It's the difference that makes the difference. And that's so important with what we're covering SHITNOSIS later. So I learned that in his book, and a thing called the law of reversed effort. Another element of it is the word try. I call it the Yoda principle. If you see the Star Wars films, Luke Skywalker's there, Master Yoda turns around and he says, do or do not. There is no try. And what this basically means is if you say to yourself you're going to try something, that word try itself is a powerful suggestion that there's a possibility of failure. So do or do not, because there is no try. And also I learned about a thing called pattern interrupts. Now, what this essentially, in basic terms, there's more to it, but in basic terms, we're all programmed. We store in our personal laptop computer files on what we expect things to occur in life, things that we've experienced before. Obviously, we can't do that with something that's a new encounter until we've had that new encounter, then it gets stored as a memory. But things are stored there. So when we go into a situation, our brain very quickly goes through the filing cabinet to pattern match and find the file that it recognizes as being the pattern of life or the situation that's currently about to occur in that moment. And then it tells us how we should feel, how we should react, what would be normal. And this is all happening in a split second. Brain's an amazing thing when it works right, when it's programmed right. Fortunately, negative shit gets in there, and that's where the problems occur. So, for example, if you put your hand out to shake somebody's hands, in most cultures, there are exceptions, the pattern that would be matched there is the other person will put out their hand, handshake occurs. That's what people expect. It's an instinctive thing. But you can interrupt that, and Milton Erickson's perhaps best known for what's known as the Erickson handshake hypnotic induction, which is that he put his hand out, and as people went to shake his hand, instead of shaking their hand, he grabbed them by the wrist, bring their hand up to the face, and while they're in that confused, disoriented state of what the fucking hell's going on here, he'd bring the hand towards the face and say, as your hand's coming towards your face, because in that moment of confusion and disorientation, the critical faculty, analytical area, executive function kind of goes, what the fuck's going on? I can't be doing with this, sensory overload, I'm fucking off for a tea break. And in that split second, you've got the opportunity that whatever you suggest or command then goes straight into the unconscious, subconscious mind to reprogram and take immediate effect with the personal laptop computer. So I blended all these things together and I thought, I've got nothing to lose. No. So I went to school, and when the school bully at high school came up, and normal daily routine was pin me against the wall, give a load of verbal insults, then hit me, let go of me, walk off with his entourage laughing. That would be the normal routine. Well, I had nothing to lose if I was going to get hit and insulted anyway. So the moment his hand started coming towards me, I went, excuse the language, stop. I'll try and censor it. Stop effing about. Why don't you stop effing wasting time with all your verbal bullshit? Just try and hit me. Go on, try and hit me now. And as his hand's about to connect with my neck, his eyes went and glazed over. And I thought, something's happening here. The book's made mention of this. Could this person be becoming confused and disorientated because the pattern of what they expected was not matched? So their pattern was interrupted, hence it's called a pattern interrupt. Has sensory overload been achieved? Has that critical faculty, analytical area, executive function, call it what you will, booked off for a tea break? Nothing to lose. So, I just continued saying, go on, try and hit me. In fact, no, either hit me or just fuck off.
I need to...
Yeah, sorry.
Apologize. We had a little bit of a glitch, but we are back up and running. It was a very split segment, probably about 20 seconds or so. So I do apologize to everyone. Of course, we are back with Dr. Jonathan Royle, and just want to, of course, welcome all of our amazing listeners currently on the Wisdom Audio app. Dr. Royle or Jonathan, I obviously, whoops, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I obviously want to chat about your book too. And, thank you, by the way.
Can I just say what happened there? What happened is he let go, must have carried on being confused and started walking off and turned to his entourage and said, follow me, fellas. And then turned to me and went, don't effing ever come near me again. Well, I was happy not to. And he never came near me again from that day. And that was the day I learned that words, as well as wounding, can also be life-changing.
Wow. I obviously want to chat about your book. And what I was trying to say before is thank you so much for sharing such very personal, your personal raw story. And of course, the name of your book, if you want to show that again, is called The SHITNOSIS.
Hypnosis, helping you get over the shit in your life and get your shit together. So it's not as flippant as it first sounds, because a lot of people talk about, oh, I've had a shit day today, or I'm feeling like shit, or I hope this shit ends soon. It's a part of everyday life. I mean, in fact, you know, I'm going to throw it back, if you don't mind, Janice, at you, because I know you've had the first chapter of this is kind of more of comical observations about the word shit in everyday life, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I will say right off, as you said to me when we initially met, you cannot be easily offended by this book. It's the name of the book, of course, is called SHITNOSIS, and helping you get over the shit in your life and get your shit together. The other part of this book that I love, of course, is where on the cover of the book, I'm just going to come out and say it.
Yeah.
The fuck that, but the FUCK has an acronym, which is fully unconscious conditioning knowledge. And that is
therapy honoring absolute transformation.
Yeah, I mean, and when I tell you when I started reading this book, I'm not easily offended. I was laughing my ass off. But as you go through, I mean, you know, and I had a few days there where I'm like, okay, I need to laugh. Oh, well, let me just pull up my copy of SHITNOSIS, and I know I'm going to get hysterical here. But you hear it in such a way to practical life. For instance, as you're going through all the different phrases or occupation, for instance, acupuncturist, hold still or this will hurt like shit. You use shit in a way that can be translated to all that shite, I refer to shite, the shite to get over it in our lives. But you really approach it from not only a comical standpoint, but you really relate it to a perception of what somebody can look at it as or what it means to you. When you sat down to write this book, what was and I of course have the book up, which is Americanism, who gives a shit. When you sat down to write this book, obviously coming from your background and what you shared with us with your story, what is the overall thing that you want people to get from this book?
Okay, that relates to what I said earlier about things getting unbalanced. I mean, in a nutshell, and it does get mentioned in the chapter where it asks the question, are you emotionally constipated? And how to remove those blockages that are causing you issues in your life. Again, shit-related metaphors, but they're relevant to what causes people issues. You see, every human being, in order to function fully, happily, harmoniously, healthily, and in a manner where they don't have any habits, addictions, fears, phobias, emotional issues, blah, 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 needs to, whether they're consciously aware of it or not, needs to feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished, and valued. Now, at first listening, they sound all very much the same, but if you get a thesaurus and check them out, loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished, and valued. Some of them relate to self-esteem, some to self-confidence, some to self-image, some to self-control, aka willpower. So here's the thing. If there's been any imbalance or any mini trauma, which is something else I'll talk about later, from the moment of birth up until I say around the teenage years, now sick mind fraud, better known to some people as Sigmund Freud, said it was 0 to 7, the formative years. In my experience and observation, I think it's more like to puberty, teenage years, to be honest, and then things become kind of frozen in time in the personal desktop computer and affect how we react to things in life for the rest of our life, unless we go through a certain process to get in there and delete negative files and implant new positive software, which is one of the aims of the book. So if there's any negative impact on the way you feel loved, or rather don't feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished and valued, and it's different for everyone. Some people have an imbalance in one of them, some in 2, some in 3. It varies. But if there's any imbalance at all, it's going to have a negative impact on your self-confidence, self-image, self-esteem and self-control. Any negative impact on them sadly impacts on your self-worth, self-love, self-respect and positive selfishness, the ability to look after yourself so you can do your best. And any negative impact on them will ultimately impact massively on your sense of self, your self-identity, who you truly are. And that's why people end up feeling like there's something missing, like there's a gap. And it's not rocket science. If we can find somebody who's got a habit, addiction, fear, phobia, emotional issues, sometimes even health complaints, because stress itself, doctors openly accept stress is the biggest cause of organic illness. It can lead into organic illness. So consequently, there's evidence to show that being calm, relaxed and such can help the body go into natural healing mode as well. And sometimes even work miracles. Not all the time, but sometimes. Other times I would say it's not miracles, it's just a reversal of getting away from the negative. So SHITNOSIS has got various chapters on various techniques, some, not all of which will be suitable for everyone. And the reason for that is there's 2 main types of people. There are logical people, very analytical and think things a lot. And then there's emotional people, very creative types. So there's techniques for both types of people in this book. So don't worry, it doesn't mean you're going to buy this book and find that, if you find one of the techniques doesn't work for you, fine. In that chapter, there will be another technique, or you'll be told a different way of using that technique. So it's more applicable to you if you're an emotional type rather than a logical type, and vice versa. So to answer the question, my aim, I had in mind when I started writing the book, was to equip people with the tools for themselves so they wouldn't have to buy any more self-help books, so they wouldn't have to go spending out massive amounts of money going to see a therapist, but so they could actually heal those imbalances and balance things out. So in turn, it repairs their self-esteem, self-image, self-confidence, self-control, their self-worth, self-respect, self-love. So ultimately they can feel whole again, healed, truly who they were meant to be, having removed any negative self-blame, shame, guilt, regret, remorse, or anger, fear, frustrations that may be tied into any mini traumas or big traumas of the past, so that no longer carrying that baggage around so they can move forward freely. And I wanted to do it with a sense of humour as well, because laughter is the best medicine. Unless you're diabetic, then insulin tends to work better. But generally speaking, laughter is the best medicine because of the feel-good chemicals it releases in the body. And it's one of the best ways of overcoming fears and phobias as well. If you can reprogram your personal network computer so that, for example, when you see a spider that used to make you feel tense and anxious and scared, that when you see it, your mind does the pattern matching and pulls out a picture of a big tarantula wearing multicolored Wellington boots, a big clown's nose, a funny wig, blowing a party popper and trying to waddle along, that just makes you laugh. And because of the chemical release that laughter causes, it makes you feel calm, relaxed, confident and in control, then hey, you've said goodbye to your phobia forever. And the book's full of things like that.
It sure is. And of course, I highly encourage everyone to go purchase this book. It is that good. Before we sign off, Dr. Royle, where can you mention your website before, and if you could just tell us where our viewers and listeners can get in contact with you.
Of course, yeah. I'm on pretty much every social media channel. My handle, I think that's what they call it, my daughter tells me, is at Royle Hypnotist. That's ROYLEHYPNOTIST. That's on everything: TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. Oh, sorry, YouTube. I've also got a channel called Celebrity Hypnotist. But all of these links you can find on that page, magicalguru.co.uk. That's magicalguru.co.uk. And that's pretty much it. I've nothing to sell you unless you want to become a diploma bearing, accredited, insured, confident and competent practitioner of SHITNOSIS to help other people, and also of hypnotherapy and NLP and stuff that I'm a qualified trainer in which case then go and check out ultimatehypnosiscourse.com. But if not, only one thing for sale, and that's SHITNOSIS, which is 17 United States dollars as a physical book, but you can actually get it on Amazon Kindle if you've got Amazon Prime for free. But if you do buy the physical book, if you prefer the physical book, which incidentally, there's also got tons of these things in it, QR codes that you can just scan, and it takes you to interactive online treatment videos and training videos. It's much more than just a book. 17 United States dollars, £14.70 United Kingdom sterling. I promise you, as long as you actually put into action what's in the book, you can change your life in so many positive ways.
Oh my gosh, this has been such an amazing podcast. I want to take this opportunity really from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for sharing your story in your book. Just want to thank everyone again, of course, on the Wisdom Audio app. You know, I am a live podcaster and sometimes things go a little haywire, but you know what? So much more important than that are the stories that inspire us. And Alex, aka Dr. Jonathan Royle, you truly have inspired me with your book. Thank you so much for being here today.
Can I just say to all the viewers and listeners, please, if you've got any little element of hope, truth, inspiration from this, please do me and Janice a massive favour. Like this, make comments where there's the option to do that, and share it far and wide so that other people can benefit as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Again, I hope definitely you will consider coming back soon.
Yeah, cool.
My name is Janice Malillo, the host of Stories That Inspire Us. Today, again, inspired by this amazing man sharing his story. Thank you so much, everyone, and we shall see you again very soon. Bye for now.